Welcome to the Smart Connector podcast, which helps entrepreneurs generate more impact, wealth, and success, attract others for all the right reasons, and become a smart connector, the architect of your amazing business and life. This podcast is sponsored by Virtual Non-Execs, the world's #1 peer-to-peer board advisor community, which connects thousands of investors, entrepreneurs, and advisors globally.
Hello and welcome back to this episode of Unleash Your Inner Athlete with me, Julia Pizzichemi. And today we are going to be exploring resilience, transformation, health and connection with my special guest. Now, she is a highly successful businesswoman who turned her journey through cancer into a thriving business built around connection and empowerment. Now, she's a brand marketer. She's a consultant and a trainer for over 15 years. She's worked in the entertainment and media industries. She's run campaigns for big companies like Coca-Cola, Europcar, ITV, the Discovery Networks, and also scaled her brand identity business from 1 million to 6 million in 2 years and ended up selling it to US Communications Group Interpublic. Now, today we are going to be taking a deep dive into how health trauma isn't the end. In fact, it could only be the beginning, and the importance that health and fitness play in your recovery. But also how staying strong and active is really important to getting you through these adverse times. And a little later on, we're actually going to be sharing with you some tips that can help you manage this process before, during, and after, and also, go into a few of the myths around this particular cancer diagnosis so you can get through and we can shed some light on maybe helping you get through and have a better, effective, more healing recovery. On top of that, what we're also going to be talking about is, your life experience and how that can shape your success and your personal story, how important it is and how that could actually be the key to having you get through these adverse times and achieve your success. And obviously, as a businesswoman, she's also going to help give you insights into navigating the corporate world, building resilience, and achieving the success you really deserve. So, if you're looking for inspiration today and you're suffering with some challenges and some setbacks, and you're looking to change those challenges and create a new beginning for yourself, then without further ado, I would like to introduce my very special guest, the Smart Connector herself, Jane Bayler. Hello, Jane, and welcome to Unleash Your Inner Athlete. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you being here today.
It's wonderful to be here, Julia, and thank you so much for that amazing introduction. That was so fantastic. So thank you.
Well, it's well deserved, everything you've achieved, and we are going to be getting into your actual story and that process you went through. But before we get into that, I want you to sort of let people get to know you a bit better. So what was life like for you building up to that point? Where did it all start for you and getting into this kind of industry, this brand marketing and everything?
Yes. Well, thank you, Julia. So I think sometimes looking back, things happen in quite a random way. And I think for me, I was studying for a creative degree. So I studied drama and English, and my parents were very, very unsupportive. And they said, "Why are you studying for this rubbish degree? That's not going to help you get a job." And they were quite right. I had an absolutely fantastic time, but nobody wanted to employ me at the end of that
No.
degree, right? So I then went and did a postgraduate because I thought, well, what else can I do? And I thought, well, I'm really interested in design as well because I'm just a very, very creative person. So I went and studied design for a year. And then I couldn't put off the inevitable for any longer. So I started working as an art director and a designer in theatre, film, and TV. And I did that for around 4 years. And of course, you have to hustle, you have to network, you have to get work as a freelancer, and you have to pay attention to how to do that from day one. So I think in a very amateurish way, let's just say, I hung out with a lot of people, I built my network, I fine tuned my sales skills, let's just say, and I managed to get some really, really interesting bits of work, which was great. But after about 4 years, I just got a little bit tired of that treadmill, that freelance treadmill, and it really was a treadmill. And I started to think, you know what? I just want to be able to plan my life a little bit more. I quite fancy getting a job. So by that time, obviously, I had all this experience, I had all these connections. So I went and did a sales job for about 6 months, working for a publishing company, and again, that was very, very hardcore, but it was really great training. And then I thought, I want to do something more interesting. I don't just want to do sales, I want to go into marketing. So that was when I started my agency career. And I think because I had all that background and experience in TV and film and media already, I found it relatively easy to have doors open for me. And I ended up working for a few agencies, one in the event space where they focused on automotive launches, and a big advertising agency called Young and Rubicam. And I had a short stint working in a production company and, various other things. It's all media and entertainment, basically. And then this opportunity came up to run the design agency that I ended up selling to the US communications group into public. And I think it was just a question of it was the right time because one of the partners had run off to the US. They'd had a big falling out. There were 2 partners. He was left feeling very exposed, and he was never really a business person. He was a creative. And so he said, "Can I come in and run the business?" And he incentivized me very well because obviously he had some equity and there was a profit share, and I was actually paid pretty well, but obviously not as well as I would have been paid had I not had all of those other bonuses. So I was very, very highly incentivized to make it work. And also, by this time, I was a single parent and I wasn't seeing my children, so that gave it a lot of extra oomph. I was gonna make this thing happen. I had to make this thing happen, otherwise I would just remain on that treadmill, and so that's what we did. We grew it very fast, and we sold out to the US communications group into public, which was fantastic because then that gave me some, capital and the opportunity to spend some time looking after my children as a single parent, which is something that I'd always wanted to do, and start a business from home. And so that's really my story of that industry and how it all happened. And it wasn't always very intentional. Sometimes it just kind of happened in quite a random way. And I think that's just the nature of life, isn't it?
I think it does. I think, they always say, you have your plan and what's it? I guess if you're religious or something, God has his plan for you. And sometimes you get off track and you just have to kind of go with the flow almost. And it just seems to work out. Things don't always go in a straight line. It's all over the place and opportunities
Yes.
come in. And it's down to what you decide to take advantage of, I guess, with those opportunities. But now you've actually set up this company, Smart Connector. That's how we got to know each other.
Yes.
And you're also written a book as well. So now you've reached this level of success and everything's going really well for you.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't say that life doesn't have its challenges. It certainly does. And I think what happens is when one challenge goes away, another one takes its place. And I think
Yeah.
that is inevitable. And it doesn't matter how
Mm.
successful you are or whatever's going on for you, life is supposed to have lots of challenges because that's how we grow. And
Yeah.
if we run away from challenges and if we just try to live a very small and safe life, then yes, perhaps we don't expose ourselves to as much risk, but really we're not living either. So I think anybody that wants to have a really good life, wants to have their best life, they're going to be striving constantly, and challenges are going to be a part of that. So I think that is just, unfortunately, is the way it goes. We'd all love not to have those challenges
That would be
for
perfect. Life would be
oh,
dull.
yeah. I know, Julia. It would be so nice not to have any challenges and just
Yeah.
say, "I wanna go over there," and for it all to be perfect and in a straight line, and it just happened really quickly, but it doesn't
Yeah.
happen like that in real
It
life, does
never
it?
does. No, there's lessons to learn and things we need to do that brings us to the person we need to be to actually almost, I like to say, deserving of the success probably isn't the right word, but so you can maintain it when you get there and appreciate it.
Well,
Now,
definitely.
yeah, which actually brings actually onto you had one of came and had one of the biggest challenges that anyone can have. You're having this successful career, and all of a sudden you're hit with this diagnosis.
Mm.
So, as life's ticking along relatively well, what was your experience when you had that diagnosis and you discovered that you were diagnosed with cancer, what was that
Mm.
experience like for you at that point?
Well, I have to say it came out of the blue and it was a complete shock, Julia, because you don't anticipate things like this. I don't
Mm,
think you should either, really. It's one of those things that you just have to adjust to when you're told, I'm sorry, but this is the case, you have cancer. So it was a shock, and it was particularly difficult because at the time my children were still quite young. My youngest was only 8 years old. And of course, when you're diagnosed with cancer, the first thing that happens is that you think, I'm going to die. And the reason why I thought that as well is because I had lots of breast cancer in my family and actually many relatives. I would call them ancestors in a way because I'm talking about aunts and grandparents and so on, who had died young from breast cancer. So I never knew either of my grandmothers because they died before the age of 60. And my aunt had also died at the age of 50, I think, or something like that. And my mother had actually taken part in the early tamoxifen trials because of her
mhm,
family history. So I don't know why, but a lot of this just went over my head. And I think my mother had always said to me, you don't have any more of a chance of developing breast cancer than anybody else. And I think maybe that was true, but it's very, very common. I think they say 1 in 2 people in their life will be diagnosed with cancer. And certainly breast cancer is the most common form of cancer in women, but it is also the
mhm.
most treatable.
Yeah,
So I think that was the great news that it hadn't spread. Well, it was in my lymph nodes, so I mean, it was advanced to a certain extent, but it was treatable. It was just treatable in quite a radical way. So, yeah, had to go through all of that.
yeah, and that must have as well, when you're trying to develop your career, your business, being hit with something like that, how did that impact how you felt you could then move forward in terms of, financially, the usual everyday thing, paying the bills, looking after your kids? Did any of that all go through your mind as well?
Well, absolutely, because it does change things because your priorities have to shift. I think when you are diagnosed with a really serious illness, you stop caring so much about, okay, how am I going to get rich? How am I going to provide luxuries for my children or buy all the things that I want to buy and all of those things that ultimately they're just a little bit shallow when it comes to survival, thriving, your health, because your health is your greatest wealth. And I
Mm,
think it's a wake up call when you're diagnosed with a serious illness and you realize, you know what, the most important thing is to get through this and to wake up feeling good every day
mm,
as far as you can, and obviously that's very hard when you're going through treatment, but I think it changes your values, so I think after that, that is my priority, my health always comes first, and I always make sure that I exercise, I eat well. I also pay attention to this issue of connection. I make sure that I have people around me so that I have good, strong relationships and conversations with
mm,
people that are meaningful so I don't let the loneliness creep in. And all of those things are much more important to me today than making money. Although obviously I'm still very ambitious in terms of my business. It's just that is not the most important thing in life. And that's the thing that my cancer diagnosis taught me. It's your
mm.
health.
Yeah. Well, they always say, support, having that social support, from family and people close to you is really important as part of your recovery, as well, your mental well-being. So having that is really important. But also as well, what were some of the, because obviously you expect to have your family and the people close to you supporting you. That would be a kind of a given. But what were some of the sort of shocks for you when you were going through this whole process? What were some of the surprises and shocks that you weren't quite expected that actually took you a bit by surprise?
Yeah. Well, firstly, Julia, it is nice to think that your family will be supportive, but not everybody does have a supportive family. And I think people's family support does vary enormously. And also the support, if they have a partner, how supportive their partner is also very much a variable. And one thing that quite shocked me when I was going through breast cancer treatment, and that I had obviously got to know other women that were in my position, is that sometimes the partners would just on the receiving the news, they would just walk out And that happens. And you think, how could anybody do that? But people do. They think, you
Yeah.
know what, I'm not up for this. I don't want to be the person that supports you through your treatment. I'm sorry, I'm goodbye. So we're not all blessed with a wonderful close-knit family. So I think we do have to create our own family in a way. And if we don't have a perfect family, let's just say, who are our best and most loving supporters. And obviously we
Mm.
can't expect our children to be those people because it's our job as mothers to look after our children, not for them to look
Yeah.
after us. So we have to go outside of that. So I think really it is all about, finding people who they just want the best for you and they care. And that was another thing that shocked me because people who, in some instances, I didn't think that they would be supporters, really came forward and really stepped up and they surprised me. And other people, I think maybe they just felt as though they didn't know what to do. I have to obviously forgive them for that, but they just didn't want to know. And they were just incredibly unhelpful and even just distanced themselves and ran away, really. So I think it surprises you, who comes forward and who fades away, let's just say, when you have
Mm.
a diagnosis like this.
Well, I guess for some people, it's it's difficult to know what to say, particularly if you care deeply about someone. What can you say that's going to make it better? You can't take it away from them. Maybe it brings up some of their own sort of relationship with themselves and their family members, and not knowing quite how to handle it. So for some, I guess maybe the easiest thing is run away, even though it's kind of, to most people it would be the counterintuitive to do something like that. You would want to be for someone at their lowest point in their life. But how did you go out and find those people, that support network that's really, really important at this time?
Yeah. Well, obviously, my children were, as I said, they were still young. So I was still at the stage where I was doing the drop offs and the pickups at the school gates. So obviously, I had a community of mums. And as I said, some of them were fantastic and some of them were dreadful. So, yeah. And then obviously, you do meet people through your the process of being receiving treatment. So at that particular time, I was really surprised to see how much support was available. And I am so grateful to some of the people that helped me through that time and people who gave their time and their love and their care for free, and they do it a lot. So I always try to help people who have had cancer or who perhaps had a recent diagnosis as well, because I remember how much love and care I got from not just medical professionals, but also, as I said, people who were donating their time to give complimentary treatments for free, which was incredible. Obviously, some of my friends, my neighbors, really lots of people stepped forward and were gave me a lot of love during that time, and I will forever be grateful for that because it just made the journey so much more pleasant and bearable.
Yeah. And has this whole experience for you, has it changed you in any way? Your the way you approach life, the way you think about things. Has that had an impact on you from that point of view?
Yeah, I think a cancer diagnosis, particularly when you've come out the other side, does have quite a profound effect, and it definitely does change you. And I think what you realize is that life can be taken away from you at any time. At any time you can get sick. You never know when
Yeah.
it's coming. We don't have any certainty around that. Much as we'd like to think we do, you can be as healthy as you like. And certainly before my own diagnosis, I always went to the gym. I was always fit and healthy and a good weight and I always ate well. So all of those things, I think by most people's standards, they will say, "Well, Jane's very, very healthy." I mean, I would drink a little bit of alcohol, but
As we
most
all do.
people do. Yeah, exactly. So I didn't. That was my only vice, and a bit of chocolate,
Mm.
but that's pretty
Well, this
normal.
is the thing, it's kind of a myth, isn't it, that, people who are unhealthy are the ones who get very ill, but that very often isn't the case. It's just because you're fit and healthy doesn't mean you're not gonna be, struck down with something at some point. And obviously, the older we get, the more at risk we are of that.
Yes, and I used to discuss this with with the team at the hospital, and I saw lots of other women who were also going through treatment, and I live in a relatively, affluent area, and so I would say the vast majority of the women, they were, of, normal weight or what you would call slim. They were no different to me, really. But they were falling like flies in terms of actually getting this diagnosis, and I remember I said to the surgeon, I said, "Why is this? Why are so many women?" He said, "It is on the rise." I said, "Why?" And they said, "Well," he said, "Well, we nobody knows." So I think it's a combination of factors. Some of it may be lifestyle, but I don't really know. Some of it may be genetic, some of it may be
Mm,
environmental. There may be so many causes, but I think the most important thing is never blame the victim. It is
mm,
nobody's fault. Even if you are 20 stone and you smoke like a chimney, well, I mean, obviously, that's not a good thing, but it is never too late to change your habits and
yeah.
to adopt a healthier lifestyle. And
Mm,
obviously, that is going to increase your risk. But what I'm saying is that the risk is there, whether you
yeah.
are 20 stone and smoke a pack of cigarettes a day, or whether you are slim, healthy, fit, and
Yeah.
have a great diet. It's just there.
Yeah. I mean, I did a tiny bit of research into this because you were diagnosed with BRCA, wasn't it? Am
No,
I
no,
correct?
I did have the genetic testing,
Oh,
and,
right. Okay.
they actually said that I don't have the BRCA gene. For anybody that doesn't know, BRCA, it's a particularly aggressive gene that can be picked up in people that don't have breast cancer, and usually the treatment, and I think Angelina Jolie was the most famous case of this.
Yeah.
You They usually advise a double mastectomy because it does
Mm.
very significantly increase your chances of, getting the disease. However,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think they said about if you've got the gene, then that doesn't automatically mean you're gonna get ovarian or breast cancer, but they did say that 50 out of 100 women will get it before they're 70 or by the time they're 70 years old, and I think it's very rare. It's about 1 in 400 get it, but in some populations, it's 1 in 40. But
yeah,
there are different, and they said that, mastectomy isn't necessarily the treatment. Obviously, you'd go to your specialist and discuss all your options or your choices. But, as with any cancer, it comes down to, looking at your options, looking at how you can recover best, medications that you can take, but also lifestyle changes are really important. Like you said, obviously, if you're going to have very unhealthy lifestyle, you're going to increase that risk, especially as you get older. But that making specific lifestyle change in terms of your activity levels, what you're eating, sleep you're getting are really, really important for helping not just if you get diagnosed with BRCA, but also any kind of cancer diagnosis.
yes, definitely. It is very important just to for every day for you to be the healthiest version of yourself wherever possible. And that isn't always easy for us because life can be stressful. It's sometimes easy to overeat, eat the wrong things, not go to the gym, drink too much, all of
Yeah.
those things, whatever it is that your particular vice is, let's just say,
Mm,
not make the effort to connect with people, just isolate. That is a very, very big cause, I think, of ill health is not
mm,
having enough connection in your life. So all of those things, they take effort. It takes
yeah.
effort for me every single day as a, single person. I'm a single mother, or I don't have a partner. I have to say, okay, who am I going to have an authentic, really good conversation with today to make sure that I am not just physically healthy, but also mentally healthy?
Mm, mm,
Who can I connect with? And I have to pay
exactly.
attention to building that support network around me. And I think that's, something that we all have to do really in order to, enjoy our lives. Never mind recovering from a serious illness. Yeah.
Well, they actually say that, the definition, I think it was, of true health is not just about the physical, and the mental, but it's actually the social as well. You need to include it. It's a very holistic way of looking at your health these days, and you've got to
Yes.
look at all those aspects. And, yes, physical health is really important in terms of your recovery. Obviously, reducing that risk of being diagnosed, not just with cancer, but with any illness. In terms of it is, beforehand, it's going to help give you that strength to help you cope with any diagnosis or any treatment you may get. And during, it's certainly going to help your body cope with any treatments, particularly in terms of bone loss, bone density. So helping to improve that muscle quality, which is, you need to have muscle mass, which is then going to improve your muscle density. So things like if you're going through chemotherapy, radiotherapy, that really affects your bones and you're more at risk of things like osteoporosis and things like that. So really having that strong, healthy body is really important. But also after you've gone through that diagnosis in terms of your recovery. So kind of having that gentle reintroduction to fitness and health and building your strength and endurance up in a very moderate way, as you would with any program, just building it up and getting yourself back out there. But what is also key is that social network and having those people, those friends around you that is really going to help you get you mentally back on track and get you moving forward again. And I think that is really, really important.
Yeah, I agree, Julia. And I think today it is quite hard for a lot of people to get that because the our online environment, let's just say, has meant that a lot more people are gaining, let's just say, social juice from being on their phones, or they'll go to the gym and they'll have their earphones on, or we don't live in that kind of local community-based environment that we had in the past, certainly
Mhm.
pre-internet. And so we can almost be tricked into thinking, well, we are having a relationship with somebody because if you're listening to a podcast or watching a podcast like this, obviously it's a bit like eavesdropping on a very interesting conversation. So it's great, but it is not everything. It is not enough. We also need to have those real conversations out in the
Mhm.
world with real people, face to face, going for a walk, having a coffee, having a drink in the evening or whatever. It is
Mhm.
important, I think, for us to thrive to actually do that and
Yeah, and
speak to people on the phone.
I think as you get older, you need it more. I think as you become older, you become more isolated. So getting out there, in terms of you said getting out there, networking, meeting people, and having that one-to-one connection is
Yes,
really important.
definitely.
More older we get, the more we need it in some ways.
Yeah, I think we need it at every stage in our lives, but I think, as you said, with young people, they tend to be more socially active anyway. They're just more. They've probably got more energy. They've got more
Yeah,
drive. They've got less responsibilities. Maybe, maybe
yeah,
they're more out in the workplace and being employed, so they're going and meeting people in lots of different environments. So I think it's
mm,
less of a challenge for them. And certainly, I think if you're a mother with young children, you do have obviously a community that is based around the whole parenting thing, or even if you have a baby, they have like mother and baby, all of those kind of things. But if you don't have children, or if your children are beyond the age where you are having to ferry them around and meet other parents and all of that kind of thing, then, or if you have an online business like you and I do, then we have to work at it for sure. And it's just, discipline, like anything
yeah,
else really, isn't it?
yeah. I must admit, I'm quite happy to sit on the sofa, but I am aware that after some time I need to get out there and start meeting people.
Well, I know, but you and I, Julia, we like to get out and network in London a little bit, don't we? We've had a couple of really great evenings, haven't we, in London?
Yeah, this segues nicely into your business and how this realization of the importance during this process for you of connecting with people brought
Yeah.
you into your business, the Smart Connector. So tell us a little bit about how you used that to build that brand.
Yeah, well, a number of things led up to my passion for connection. And a lot of it was to do with my journey, my personal journey around relationships and really it was to do with the relationship that I had with the two fathers of my children, and it was to do with some of the people that I work with in business. And I just came to an epiphany, and I wouldn't say that I did this by myself. I basically went on a very quite intense personal growth journey as part of my recovery from cancer. And I really looked at the whole of my life, and I looked at, where have I gone right and where have I gone wrong, if you like. And I realized that where I had not made the best choices was in my choice of relationships. And I thought, well, why is that? And I traced it right back to my childhood because it's just the way that I was brought up is that don't rely on us. Don't rely on anybody else. You make your own luck. My father used to say that you go out there, you make your own luck. And of course, what it really was that they had a lot of challenges themselves and they didn't really feel as though they could, let's just say, make much of a difference to us. So I felt very, very alone as a child and very kind of unsupported and very unsupported as an early adult. And I left home very young and I never went back. I never even spent a single night after I left, my home. So I went out into the world with, I would say, a faulty mindset, which was this
Mm,
mindset that, you just have to do it all for yourself. And that was where I went wrong because I actually underestimated the power of other people to have an impact on your business or life.
yeah.
So when I realized this, it was like the penny dropping. And I realized actually there is nothing more important than the relationships that you have and the connection that you have with other people and the trust that you're able to establish. And whether the connection that you have with others is authentic and enriching, whether you are surrounding yourself with those who lift you higher, or whether actually you have toxic people in your life or in your business that are dragging you down. And it is not even something that I considered before. I particularly considered. I just took it for granted. I was probably like a little bit kind of trusting and optimistic and like many
Mm,
of us. But I learned, the hard way that there is nothing more important in life than connection. And connection exists on three levels. It starts with the connection that you have with yourself and being very clear about your purpose. And I think after I came out of my cancer journey, I was very, very clear about my purpose. I mean, I absolutely knew what I was on this, world to in this world to do. And then it progresses to your connection with other people and those interpersonal relationships and making sure that you surround yourself with those who lift you higher. And then it becomes connection to many, and that's what we're doing here, really. It's bringing our message into the world and doing it in a way that resonates with other people, has an impact on
mm,
them, and that is something that obviously as a marketer, I'm also incredibly passionate about, how to talk about what you do in the right way so that people step up and say, "This is something that I need. That's something that resonates with me. I'm in. I'm part of your tribe." All of those kind of things. That is all the end result of the other two aspects of
mm.
connection. So that's connection to many, and that's something obviously that we've done a bit of work on, isn't it, as well,
Yeah.
Julie?
Yeah. People will connect with you better if they understand what you're about and they understand, your journey, your story as to where you are, and then making it very simple for them. And actually, we were just sort of mentioning earlier about how important your story is in shaping that success and then changing that personal story, which is kind of what you had to go through in a sense, is that knowing those, very often we're taught our behaviors and habits from when we're very young, and those that stay with us and can maybe prevent us from moving forward or create these fears inside us that stop us from taking those steps or narrowing our, what's the word, not our focus, but our ability to expand ourselves and get out of that box we sort of putting ourselves in. So being able to change, but it's kind of for a lot of people, I guess, how do you change that story? How do you move forward?
Yeah. Well, I don't think we can do this alone. And I think, again, this comes back to this, there's amazing, amazing quotes that have been around for centuries. There are so many of them, but one of them that I particularly love is "No man is an island." That was
Mm,
said by the poet John Donne back in 1642. And really, in the olden days, let's just say, before we had all this kind of technology and houses and we were just living in caves and so on, we knew that we had to rely on other people because if we didn't, we just get eaten by a some kind of a wild animal, or somebody would
Yeah.
come in for the neighboring cave and, club us over the head with a rock or
Okay.
something. So it was very much a matter of life or death in those times. But really, it hasn't changed today. Yes, we've got all the trappings of civilization, but we still need other people just as much as we did then.
Mm.
And we have to, particularly, I think, in this age of, online, digital, the digital world, right? We need to have the ability to really filter and qualify the right people. And that is something that it's a learned behavior, because there are a lot of frauds, cheaters, bad people that use the
Mm.
internet as their playing ground.
Yeah.
And so it's more than easy to have hundreds of relationships and make connections all over the place. But we have to have that ability to say, is this person right for me? And I think a lot of that just comes from this North Star, this kind of guiding light, which says, these are my people and these are not
Yeah.
my people. And I'm never going to be for everybody. There are going to be people that really hate me, and that's
Yeah.
absolutely fine. And we have to be okay with that. And there will be other
Yeah.
people who they say, you know what, that person is like me. I like that person.
Mm.
She's got something
Yeah.
about her that resonates with me. And then
Mm.
it becomes a values thing, and you connect through values. And I think
Yeah.
that's important as well.
Yeah. I mean, as regards your business, and as we've talked about, you know
Mm.
all about the corporate world and
Yeah.
being successful and what it takes in terms of connections there. I mean, can that be a bit of a minefield, particularly if you're starting a new business, you decided to take that risk and push through those challenges,
Yeah, so actually I'm just about to bring out my new book, which is called Quit Big, and that is actually for professionals who want to make the transition from employment to entrepreneurship, and particularly if they want to sell their own services, because obviously I believe that that is the future. I think there's an incredibly bright future for service providers of every type, and that could be consultants, coaches, brokers, anybody really that has an in-demand skill set or knowledge that people need. So I do think that the thing about being employed is that obviously there are some wonderful things about it. In that, first of all, you get the paycheck at the end of the month. That is the big benefit, isn't it, of employment?
you know
Uh,
exactly what you're getting. You can budget.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing that most people like about it most, right? But there are also many, many tricky aspects to it, in that the higher you rise, the harder it gets. You get a lot of jealousy, you get a lot of people, wanting to knock you off your perch and take your job. I certainly experienced that. And that
Mm.
is very, very common, that you're, particularly as you get older, you're really having to defend your position if you have a position that's worth having. And so what happens is you're put in a defensive position a lot of the time, and that is not really good for you, I think, in terms of your well-being, because
Mm.
really we need to be expansive. We need to be looking ahead and thinking, what opportunities are out there? How can I innovate? How can I make my life or my work more interesting, more successful, more worthwhile? And
Mm.
that is the big challenge, I think, of for most people of higher tier employment, is that really you become a bit of a square peg in a round hole, and it's hard for it not to be like that. So
Mm.
that is the challenge.
Yeah.
And, that is the thing that I love to also help people navigate.
Well, I think that's what I love about what you do, because you're taking their personal story and you're sort of blending that into their brand to something that really people can tap into and understand and connect with, which I think few people do. It's more about the product of the selling of the product rather than, and I think now, a personal brand is becoming more and more important, actually more so than, a brand itself. It's the person behind that people want to that I think there's a need that people want to be able to tap into someone's personal story and sort of have that connection. And I think that's something you do very well.
Well, thank you so much, Julia. I really appreciate that. And as I said, it's been amazing to see how your brand is evolving. And I'm so excited for all the work that you're doing as well, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I completely agree that people buy people for sure. And I don't think I think it's a very old fashioned idea that you can hide behind a corporate brand or a business brand now.
Mm,
Yes, you can, of course, if you're working for like an enormous corporation that's been around for decades and everybody knows the name. But I think what happens with a lot of professionals, say, is that let's say you've been working for an Accenture, okay, so big management
yeah.
consultant. Everybody knows they've heard of Accenture. It's a big name, right? And then you get kudos from, oh, I'm a consultant for Accenture, and they're like, oh, you work for Accenture and all of that. And then they find themselves out there in the real world and they're not working for Accenture anymore. And then they try and create a business and then they call it XYZ business or whatever it is, and nobody cares, because who's XYZ business? They just don't care. What they do care about at that point is your track record, your history, your credibility, your authority, your personality, and your approach.
Mm,
And whether they resonate with you as a person is a lot to do with whether they feel as though your values resonate with theirs and whether you've got what it takes to help them succeed in their business or life. And it's as
mm,
simple as that. But you cannot do that just by hiding behind a corporate brand, even if it's something that you have slaved over for 6 months and made look absolutely amazing. You have to get out there and you have to do things like this, have these conversations so that people can
yeah.
get to know you really as if, as if they were having this conversation with you in real life.
Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with having your own company name and company brand, but people want to see the person behind it and get to know
Yeah.
their story and why they're doing what they're doing. And I think that that's kind of an opportunity for people who are just starting out or have a small business, that actually you have that upper hand over what the bigger companies don't have. It's that ability to create that very much more personalized product or service that people can really connect with and tap into and feel they have a part of, I think.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Julia. And just to pick up on what you said about having a name, obviously, I'm very, very into naming, and I love to help people package up their services. So it is very important to have a messaging and language system that sets you apart, and part of that is naming. So if you have a company name, for example, that needs to be a signpost so that it gives people a clue as to what you're all about. So the business brand and the packaging of the services and all of that, that exists alongside your personality. You need both, but
Mm,
they need to work together in a congruent and harmonious way in order for
yeah.
you to really cut through and stand out as
Yeah,
being more relevant and
yeah,
valuable than others that your audience might also be considering.
yeah. And I think as well as we get older, we tend to think, everything's out there for the younger generation, isn't it? Everyone wants a piece of the younger generation, but
Yeah.
they don't have the story that you have as you get older. So as you're getting into your 40s and beyond, you have a great backstory to whatever you decide to create. And you can really feed that in very strongly into whatever it is that you're trying to put out there to the world or share with the world.
I think you're right. And I know that when clients come to me, for example, I mean, they like the fact that I've got this demonstrable history of achievement. They're like, okay, you scaled a business from 1 to 6 million in 2 years. Actually, I'd quite like to do that as well. And so I think when you've walked the walk, you don't just talk the talk. Then there's proof out there. If anybody wants it, I've got all the sale documents and everything else. So obviously some people make wild and unfounded claims. We know that that goes on. But I think you can tell when you see how people talk about what they've done, you can feel that sort of layer of authenticity. Whereas somehow when people lie about what they do, to me, I think they come across as a bit insincere. I don't know,
Mm.
maybe I've just got a radar for that, but you're right. Achievement and tangible track record of success is always going to stand you in good stead.
Yeah. So before we wrap everything up, I mean, this has been absolutely fascinating. I know a lot of people are going to learn a lot from listening to you talk today and everything you've achieved and been through and how you've changed your life so for the better. So for a few takeaways for people, what would be your top tips for someone who's getting a little older? They're finding themselves in this challenging situation, and they've got the mindset that they want to move forward, they want to get through this. What would be your top tips for getting through health trauma, any sort of setback, and actually being able to get back to life? What would be your sort of top tips for someone having been there yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question, Julia, because I saw when I was going through treatment, people who would just give up. They could not get to the point where they actually believe that they could have a fantastic life after cancer. And so they might have had a business or a great career or something like that. And they just retreated from all of that and said, you know what, I'm just going to do gardening or something for the rest of my life. Now I just have to look after my mental health and my physical health, and that's all that matters. And that is not really living, in my opinion. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with gardening. Obviously, gardening's fantastic. Any kind of a hobby or interest that
Yeah,
that brings you
if it
joy.
makes you happy. Yeah.
If it makes you happy, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you still feel as though, do you know what, I need to earn money, or I want to earn money, or I want to achieve something in business, or I want to do something really great with my life, it is never too late, and you're never too old. So that is the first thing that I would like people to remember. The second thing is really that always prioritize your health. Obviously, I know that that is something that you are very, very passionate about, Julia, and that you
Yeah,
help people with.
comes before
Um,
anything for me.
it does. Your health is your wealth, and I totally
Mm,
believe that. So put your health first. Never ever be the person that works for 14 hours a day, and sits at your laptop, gets up at the end of that day and has crippling back pain. No,
mm,
if you're gonna be working long hours, and sometimes it's inevitable, we do have to, make sure that you do take breaks, and that you do take exercise, and that you do eat well, and you do have conversations in the meantime with people who care for you, and all of those
yeah,
other things, because otherwise you're just going to end up burnt out and miserable,
mm,
and that then you're going to be
yeah.
no good for anybody.
Yeah, and you're not actually enjoying life either. Well, if you enjoy your business, fantastic, but you're missing out on other life experiences as well. It's just passing you by, and you get to the end of your life, think, all I've done is work. I've actually, enjoyed other aspects of all this hard work.
Yes, exactly. And I think the other thing is, talking about relationships, marriages, partnerships, is I know people of my age who are in a fantastic long-term relationship, maybe decades long, and they really are married to their soulmate, let's just say, which is really fantastic, but it is actually quite unusual. So what also see is, obviously there are a lot of single people out there, and there are also people who are very unhappily married. So if you are in that situation where you are, let's say, in a challenging relationship, or if you don't have a partner in life, you still have needs. You still need to have that intimacy and that connection with people. And I would say, don't hold back. Get that intimacy and that connection wherever you can, and make sure that it is a part of your life, so that you minimize the impact of, if you are in a relationship with somebody and you feel as though, what, we're trapped together economically, or whatever it is, don't let that limit your life, and make sure that you always surround yourself with those who lift you higher.
Oh, brilliant. Well, that is fantastic advice from the very best. Now, I know if people are if people are interested in looking into what you do, they've got starting their business, or they've had a business for a while, and they're really serious about, you know, finding out a bit more about brand marketing and expanding their business and growing their business. Now, I know you're super busy, so getting in with you is a challenge. But I really do advise you look Jane up. Her business is Smart Connector. And where can they actually find you? What's the website address that they can have a bit more information on what you do?
Yeah, so it's www.janebayler.com. You can just email me on jane@janebayler.com, or you can find me on most of the social platforms,
Yeah,
particularly LinkedIn. I tend to be there more than anywhere else, and
yeah,
I'll always get back to you. We can always have a chat. I
yeah.
love to help people, particularly if you are coming out of, let's just say, a battle with cancer, or maybe you've recently been diagnosed, I will always give my time to people who are struggling with those challenges, because it's just something that I love to do. I don't charge for that, but if you want to have a conversation because you're struggling or you're suffering or whatever, then I'm here for you.
Well, that's a brilliant, brilliant offer. And also, is your book out now? Did you say it's actually published? Is that
Yeah,
for sale?
so yeah, it is, as we speak, it is being formatted for the US and the UK, Amazon, all 3 versions,
Mhm.
and I will be obviously promoting that seriously once it is launched. But
Keep your eye
again,
out for that.
yeah, if you are thinking about starting a business, maybe you're at that cusp of, leaving or considering leaving, and maybe you're midlife, you've reached a senior position and you feel as though, "Do you know what? I've hit the glass ceiling, there's really nowhere I can go," and all of those kind of things, that will be the book for you. So, yes, again, if that's
Yeah.
something that you wanna talk to me about, you know where to find me now. Thank you,
Remind
Julia.
us all about the name of the book. What was the book's name again?
The
Title,
book is
sorry.
Quit Big.
Quit Big. Okay, so there, go out and get your copy of Quit Big and
Yeah.
look for Jane promoting it as well, because there could be some good opportunities for you.
Oh,
Well,
thank you
Jane,
so
it's
much,
been
Julia.
fantastic talking to you. Your story is amazing, and I know there's going to be so many people who are inspired by that and encouraged to keep going, keep moving forward, not give up. And hopefully, more people will be inspired to take care of their health and take proactive action and break through those challenges, like we say, and get that new beginning that they so desperately deserve. But for
Yeah.
now, I would like to thank you for joining me and thank everybody for tuning in and listening to this week's edition of Unleash Your Inner Athlete. And I look forward to seeing you next time here. And I wish you all a fantastic day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved talking to you. Thank you for
It's a
inviting
pleasure.
me.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Jane Bayler is the Smart Connector, a London-based, passionate serial entrepreneur, brand marketer and business growth exploder who helps overlooked and undervalued consultants and sector experts generate consistent, scalable revenues through becoming the go-to choice of their dream clients. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate you liking, rating, and reviewing the podcast on the platform you've heard it on. And check out the links in the show notes if you'd like to connect with Jane or any of her guests in person. Thank you for listening and come back soon.